Welcome to another episode of It's Crystal Clear, a show that's designed to tell your money where to go instead of always wondering where it went. My name is Felicia Young, and I simply want to thank you for spending a few minutes with me today and allowing me to help you achieve your financial goals. Yay. Okay, so you're working on your goals for the last quarter of this year, the last 3 months. My question: are you making time to review your bank statements each month to see where you can reduce expenses? Question: are you making time to review your income and expenses so you can plan your budget every single week? Have you cut out your latte factor or have you replaced it with another one? Y'all better not have. Is the snowball method working for you? Is it helping you to pay off your credit cards and your loans from the smallest to the largest? Question: are you making time to celebrate your wins? I do not want y'all accomplishing all these goals and not make time to celebrate each little thing that you do. So if you didn't spend $50 on a cup of coffee today, yay, I need you to celebrate that. If you made time to call the cable company to reduce your monthly bill, yay, I need you to celebrate that. I want you to set up a reward system for yourself. I want you to look forward to taking control of your finances instead of making this feel like it's a chore. Y'all, I really want y'all to have fun with this process. I want you to get excited about this process because sooner or later, you're about to be debt free. You're going to be in a position to where you can do whatever you want to do because you made time to tell your money where to go. So no matter what, I need you to keep moving forward. I need you to trust me. And I promise you and your bank account will thank me later. Okay, so I am very excited about this week's episode. All my other episodes have been good. It's been informational, they've been inspirational, they've been thought provoking. But this episode, y'all, I could not wait to record it. And I cannot wait for you to watch it. This episode is called I Normally Sit in the Back. Y'all, this is about to be a good one. Okay, so here we go. So I know that you all are familiar with the Bible story of Abraham and Isaac. God promised Abraham and his wife Sarah that they would have a son. And although they were older when it happened, as promised, their son Isaac was born. So later, God tested Abraham's faith and he commanded him to go to Mount Moriah. And he was commanded to kill Isaac as an offering to God. Abraham did not hesitate. He loaded up his animals, his supplies, and 2 slaves, and he set off the next day with Isaac. So after 3 days, they made it to the base of the mountain where Abraham left his animals and his slaves at the bottom. He and Isaac began their climb up the mountain. When they got to the top, Abraham started gathering wood and started a fire, and he had his mind made up that he would just simply obey God's command. Now, Isaac, he looked around a little confused, and he said to his dad, okay, I see the altar, I see the wood, I see the fire, but where is the offering to sacrifice? And his dad said, the Lord will provide. Okay, pause. To me, on the outside, it seemed like Abraham had unwavering faith to just wake up, leave his comfort zone, travel to an unknown land, climb a mountain, and kill his son, all because God said so. But I wonder, what did he feel like in his head and in his heart? For years, he and his wife couldn't have kids. Then God blessed them with one in their later years. Then God told Abraham to kill him out of obedience to him. What was in Abraham's thoughts? Can you imagine having that kind of faith? Can you imagine that kind of trust in God? To be totally transparent and honest, I do not know if I would have passed that test, y'all. I don't know if I would have been able to just take those steps like that. But we heard the good news of that story. And actually, we use that phrase today to describe a solution to our problems that seem to come out of the blue. God provided a ram in the bush. And Abraham was allowed to use that ram as the sacrifice because he was obedient to God's command. So you've all heard that side of the story. But have you ever stopped to think about the other side of the story? How did that ram get up there to begin with? And how did it get up there at just the right time to be used by God to bless Abraham and especially to bless Isaac? Abraham did not know that that ram would be there. All he knew was he had to trust and he had to obey God. That ram did not know what it was going to be used for that day. All it did was take the right steps at the right time to get to the right mountain and climb. So every time Abraham and Isaac took the step on one side of the mountain, that ram took a step on the other side of the mountain. All three of them on the same mountain, taking the same steps to be in position at the right time. Y'all, I need y'all to just think about that for a moment. Can y'all imagine God's perfect timing? Y'all, that just blew my mind. So I was a part of a ram in a bush story just a few days ago. And that is why I am so excited today. So I had to make it a lesson for you all. It's too good of a story not to share. And the crazy thing is, I firmly believe that what happened to me a few days ago, it had to happen the way that it did so I can record this episode when I'm recording it so that those of you who are watching right now can trust and walk by faith in your current situation, knowing that God will provide your own personal ram in the bush. So, for those of y'all who know me, y'all know I'm always doing something. I'm always working on projects. I'm always doing things to simply help people. And I'm fortunate enough to be surrounded by people who love doing the same thing. So we often collaborate to make miracles happen for people. So there is a young lady who is my oldest daughter's best friend. Her name is LaShayna. And for years, LaShayna would buy extra groceries and she would just bless people with them, simply because she wanted to be a blessing to families. Well, a few years ago, she reached out to me to say that she had a bunch of groceries and she was giving them to me so I can find families to bless as well. Y'all, when she first brought all these groceries to my house, my eyes popped out of my head. There were bags and bags and bags of groceries, all kinds of stuff. Those bags filled up my dining room table, my kitchen cabinets, my freezer, my fridge, my floors. It was enough food for me to go give to 3 families. And it was around Thanksgiving time when this was done. So needless to say, LaShayna was a ram in the bush for those families who prayed to God to make a way to feed their family for the holiday. So LaShayna would give me groceries to give to families several more times after that. And there were a few times when she would give me a lot of gift cards from H-E-B grocery store to just simply bless people. And so this has been going on for several years. So recently, she was at my house and she was spending time with my daughter. A few days later, I get a Cash App notification. It was money that was sent from Shayna. So I shot her a text and I was like, okay, what's this for? What's going on? And she said she didn't have a chance to go get the groceries or she didn't have a chance to go get the gift cards this time. And when she was at my house, she decided she would just give me the cash to go bless people instead. I'm like, okay, cool, because just so happens 2 days later, on a Tuesday, I was scheduled to go and teach a finance class to a church that I partner with. So I originally was going to use the money to go get gift cards like I normally do, but for some strange reason, I decided to give out cash instead. So I decided I'm going to do $50 bills. The next day was a Monday, but it was a holiday, so all the banks were closed. I knew that on Tuesday, I would have to go to my bank. I would get all the $50 bills, and I would spend the rest of the day reviewing my lesson and getting prepared for the class that was later that night. Y'all, Tuesday morning came. I picked up my phone, and I had a zillion messages waiting for me. There were little fires everywhere that I had to put out. I was instantly irritated because I had other things to do. So I needed to be prepared for my class. But those little fires lasted the whole doggone day. I couldn't ask anyone for help with them because my signature was needed My codes were needed. My facial recognition was needed. My presence was mandatory. Urgent meetings were scheduled, so I had to hurry up and get to them. And I ended up having to wait for the person to arrive, who arrived 2 hours late. Y'all, I told y'all before, I'm a Gemini. So I have my really nice side, then I have that other side. So me having to call and call and call to get this person to meet with me, to put out this last fire, and for him to show up 2 hours late, y'all, he met that Gemini that day. Oh my God, I was so hot. And by the time I finished that problem, the bank was closed. Okay. So I couldn't get the $50 bills out for the class, and I was not happy. So I had 45 minutes to get myself together, go to an ATM machine, and then get to the church on time. So I made my way to a particular ATM machine, and this one gives out different denominations of cash. Okay, I told you that I was going to get out $50 bills, but for some strange reason, I selected $5 bills, and I had to wait until all those $5 bills were counted out and came out of the machine. So I got mad at myself again for that selection because I was already running behind schedule. So finally, all of the $5 bills came out, and I rushed to the church. So I sat in the parking lot for a few minutes. I had to woosah. I had to get over my irritation for having my whole schedule mixed up and thrown off that day. So I got my head together. I had to refocus on why I was there. So I took those $5 bills, I divided them up, I put them into thank you cards, and I put them into envelopes. Then I went inside the church and I began my lesson. So I use illustrations whenever I teach. To me, it makes it easier and the whole concept of money management make more sense. So the very first illustration that I use required 2 volunteers. So no one knows what the illustrations are at the time, and they don't know that gifts are attached. Normally, I have gift cards to give out with these exercises, but I do not announce that because I really want people to volunteer just because they want to be a part of the class. This time was no different. So I asked for 2 volunteers. A lady in the last row of seats raised her hand first, and a lady in the front row of the class raised her hand second. So I had both of them to come to the front of the room. The illustration is set up to where one of the volunteers represent us. A person who has dreams, a person who has visions, a person who has goals, but they need direction to get there. This person has to keep their eyes closed the entire time of the exercise, and they have to listen for particular instruction. The other volunteer represents the voice of God, telling step-by-step direction to help us to get where we need to go. So for some strange reason, I had the first volunteer, who was sitting on the last row, be the one who represents us. She had to close her eyes, and she had to keep them closed the entire time. So I walked around to several people in the audience, and I whispered to them to randomly yell out different directions and words. I needed them to throw the person with their eyes off track. Anything they wanted to yell, just yell. So it was time to start the exercise. The lady from the back, she closed her eyes. The lady from the front row, she started giving out instructions, and she was so good. So she said, take 2 steps forward, turn left, take 7 small steps this way, take 1 big step that way. She gave very detailed instructions to guide the lady who had her eyes closed around the room. Then the audience, this was so funny. The audience started yelling different things like, watch out for that dog. You're going the wrong way. Not that left, the other left. It was hilarious. And the room was just having a good time. So the lady with her eyes closed, she hesitated for a brief moment whenever they started yelling because she had no clue what was going on and she didn't know why they were making all that noise. But the guide kept walking close with her, kept whispering directions. So the lady with her eyes closed, she was very successful in going around the room, in between the chairs, and around different obstacles that I put inside of her way. She went right to the 2 envelopes that I placed on different sides of the room. She did very well. So then I had both ladies come back to the front of the room, and I explained the exercise to the class. I explained that that's how we are supposed to live our lives. We know that we have goals to reach. many that need money to help us accomplish it. And we are to rely on the voice of God to guide us every single step of the way. But there are times when we are distracted by outside voices, that we are distracted by situations, we're distracted by drama, we're distracted by past due bills, health issues, divorce, death, life that's lifing, that takes us off our track. And it causes us to miss out on what God has in store for us. But what we have to do is force ourselves to be still, make time to get in silence, and listen for his instructions to take you to where you need to go in order for you to get your blessings. And you have to walk by blind faith and complete trust, knowing that God will order every single one of your steps, even when it doesn't make sense to you at the time. So I gave both of the ladies the envelopes, and I told them that there was a financial blessing inside, courtesy of Shayna, who simply wanted to bless people in the class. So after I finished teaching and after the class wrapped up, the lady who normally sits in the back and was the first to volunteer, she approached me. She said, "I need to tell you my story. You need to hear my story." So I stopped and I listened intently. She said she normally sits in the back of rooms and she never volunteers for anything like this. She said she had been debating all day if she was going to come to church, if she was going to come and sit in the class or not. She said she only had $5 to her name and she needed that for gas. She said she kept trying to figure out if she was going to use that gas to get to church or she was going to use that gas to go to work. She said at the last minute, she decided she needed to get to church. She said the whole time she just kept on saying, "God, I trust you. God, I trust you. God, I trust you." She got to church, prepared to do what she normally does, sit in the back, listen, not volunteer. But at that time, she said she just felt an urge to just raise her hand and to come to the front of the room. She said, "I only had $5. Now I got this envelope." Y'all, at the time, I got chills. And I asked her if she had a chance to open up the envelope yet. She said no. In my head, I was like, oh my God. So I asked her if she would just please open up the envelope in front of me. Y'all, she opened up that envelope. Then she opened up that thank you card. And she stared at all those $5 bills. She couldn't do nothing but start crying. She hugged me, and I was stunned. When I got to my truck, I just sat there. I started remembering my irritating day. I started thinking about everything that had to happen the way it did in order for the lady in the back to get the message from God that said, "Trust me, obey me, and I promise I got you." LaShayna, who normally gives me groceries and gift cards to bless families, she decided to cash at me instead on a Sunday. That Monday, the banks were closed. Tuesday, fires everywhere that I had to put out like I'm a fireman. I missed being able to go to my bank to get the $50 bills. I had to go instead to an ATM machine. I felt the urge to get $5 bills instead. I ended up picking her to be in the exercise that had to keep her eyes closed and listen for instructions in order for her to get to the envelopes that was filled with an obvious sign from God to her. Y'all, my mind was blown. It's still kind of blown. And it made me immediately think about the story of Abraham and the ram in the bush. And it immediately made me think of every single one of you. Y'all, there are times in our lives that we're Abraham. Think about it. We're living a life full of desires. We're wanting God to just bless us tremendously. But it seems like it's just taking forever for him to answer any of our prayers and for us to get anything. I've said it to you many times since we started this Is Crystal Clear journey together. You were not created to be broke. You were not created to live paying bills. God created you to fulfill specific callings, specific assignments, and in return, he will fulfill specific promises to you, just like the promises he made to Abraham. But you're going to have to do your part. You're going to have to obey him. You're going to have to trust him. And you're going to have to follow him, no matter how much his instructions simply don't make sense. Like something extreme, like killing your son as an offering, or something that seems minor, like you're using your last $5 just to get to church. You have to trust, you have to obey, you have to follow. But many of you are having a difficult time trying to trust, obey, and follow because you don't make time to sit still and listen for him. You're so busy being busy, overworking, working 2 and 3 jobs just to pay bills that never seems to go away. You're spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to stop yourself from drowning in debt. You're spending a lot of time trying to figure out on your own how to get out of the chaos that is in your life. Y'all, today, I'm asking you to please stop doing that. And instead, I want you to be like that woman with the $5 to her name who normally sits in the back, who stepped out on faith and went to church to hear a woman teach about latte factors and budgeting, who raised her hand to volunteer for a weird exercise and got blessed with a ram in the bush in the form of an envelope filled with $5 bills. Y'all, that is still blowing my mind. The same will happen in your life if you're willing to obey, if you're willing to trust, and if you're willing to make sacrifices along the way. God will always provide you with a ram in the bush. For some of us, God is using us to be that ram in the bush for other people when we come in contact with them, like Lashana was, to give money instead of bags of groceries like she normally does, and like I was that day. What I thought were little fires was the necessary directions that I had to take that day in order for me to miss going to the bank and forced to get those $5 bills instead of the gift cards that I normally give out. Y'all, God uses us to be blessings to other people through our time, through our talents, and through our money. Many times, it may seem like it's no big deal to us, but to the people we come in contact with, it can really be the difference between life and death. It can really be the difference between them staying in their current dire position or them being able to get their ram in the bush, just like Abraham. But you're not able to be the ram because you don't make time to sit still and listen for him. You're busy being busy. You're overworking. You're working 2 and 3 jobs to pay bills that never seems to go away. You're spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to stop yourself from drowning in debt. You're spending time trying to figure out on your own how to get out of the chaos that's in your life. Y'all, I am asking you today to be like Abraham, stepping out of his comfort zone to follow God's direction. No matter how tough the path is, no matter how long it takes to make that climb to get to your ram in the bush. I am asking you today to be like that lady who normally sits in the back and by blinded faith take bold steps forward in the direction that God's all-knowing voice is leading you in, because he has a blessing waiting for you. But you have to make that move to be in the position to receive it. I am asking you today to be like that ram, to be led by God who will use you, will use what's special inside of you to be the answers to people's problems, to be a sign from God that says, I got you. But in order to be like any of those, you have to get a handle on those obstacles that's in your way, including money, or in this case, the lack of money, those little green slips of paper, those little plastic cards, those past due bills, those low credit scores. They have to stop blocking your blessings. And they'll stop being blocked once you do your part. And that is to tell your money where to go instead of always wondering where it went. So that ends today's episode. And I really do hope that it blessed you as much as it blessed me. I need you to share this with others who you think will benefit from it. It's crystal clear. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, and it's on Apple. As usual, I want to thank my behind the scenes team for all they do to bring me to you every single week. And I want to thank you for allowing me to help your bank account. I know your bank account is thanking me. You're welcome, bank account. Until next time, I want you to dream big. I want you to stay focused, and I want you to live your best life within budget. I'll see you next time on Get Crystal Clear.